So picture this. It's the 6th year after the Hijrah, the migration to Medina. The Prophet Muhammad decides to lead his followers on a journey. But this isn't a journey for war or for conquest. It's for something deeply personal, a peaceful pilgrimage. What nobody knew at the time was that this one single act of faith was about to change everything.
And that, right there, is the big puzzle, isn't it? How can a mission that gets completely blocked, a pilgrimage that's denied, and a treaty that on paper looks like it favors the other side, how can that be called a clear victory by the Quran itself? Well, that's exactly the story we're going to unpack.
You know, it all started with a dream, a vision that was a clear call to make the pilgrimage. So the Prophet Muhammad announced his intention to travel to Mecca to perform the Umrah, that sacred ritual. This was meant to be purely a spiritual mission, a peaceful return to the holiest site in their entire faith. And he wasn't going alone, not by a long shot. Nearly 1,400 companions answered that call. Just let that number sink in for a second. This wasn't some small group. This was a massive, unified community on the move, and their only motivation was faith. And every single thing about their journey was a signal of peace. I mean, they wore the ihram, those simple white garments that pilgrims wear. They brought along sacrificial animals, which is a clear sign of religious purpose. And their only weapons? Just sheathed swords, the kind any traveler in the desert would carry for protection, not the arsenal of an invading army. The message couldn't have been any clearer. And yet, when the news reached the leaders of Quraysh and Mecca, their reaction wasn't welcoming at all. It was just immediate anger and rejection.
So, as the group got closer to Mecca, they were forced to set up camp at a place called Hudaybiyyah. And it was right here that the first really unexpected sign appeared, a sign that kind of suggested this whole journey was being guided by a force way beyond their own plans.
All of a sudden, the Prophet's own camel, al-Qaswa, she just kneels down and absolutely refuses to get up. Now the companions, they're confused. They're thinking, okay, the camel's tired, she's just being stubborn. They tried to get her to move, but she just wouldn't budge.
But the Prophet, he saw something much deeper happening. He responded with these really profound words, referencing a famous event from Mecca's history, when an army with elephants was divinely stopped from attacking the Kaaba. So he was saying, look, this isn't stubbornness, this is a signal. Our entry into Mecca is not going to happen by force. A totally different path is being chosen for us.
And that divine halt, it led straight into a really tense standoff. The Quraysh completely blocked the Muslims' path, dead set on not letting them enter Mecca. What happened next was basically a high-stakes diplomatic chess match, with messengers racing back and forth between the two camps.
The Quraysh decided to send in their best negotiator, Urwa ibn Masud. This guy was a wise, highly respected chief known for his diplomacy. His whole mission was to size up the situation and convince the Prophet to just turn around and go home. But what he saw in the Muslim camp? Well, it would completely change his mind about everything.
Urwa went back to Quraysh, but not with threats or demands. He came back with this powerful testimony. He basically told them, listen, I've been to see kings. I've seen Caesar, Khosrow, the Negus, but I have never ever seen a people so devoted to their leader. He had seen firsthand a community that was held together not by power or by fear, but by this incredible love and loyalty. And you can bet his words really shook Quraysh's confidence.
So, seeing the negotiations just hitting a wall, the Prophet decided to send his own envoy, someone who could go straight to the leaders in Mecca and make it clear, once and for all, that they came in peace. And for this crucial job, he chose one of his most trusted companions, ʿUthmān ibn Affan.
ʿUthmān made it into Mecca. He was under the protection of his clan, but he was pretty quickly detained by the Quraysh leadership. And back at the Muslim camp in Hudaybiyyah, time just kept passing. No word. And in that silence, that information vacuum, a really dangerous rumor started to spread like wildfire.
That was the question hanging over everyone. Had their messenger been murdered? You have to understand, in the unwritten laws of that time and place, an envoy was untouchable. To kill one was the ultimate insult, an undeniable declaration of war. The whole situation had reached a boiling point.
So in this moment of absolute crisis, the Prophet called his followers together. There, under a tree, he asked them for a pledge, a solemn oath. And one by one, all 1,400 of them came forward and pledged to fight to the very last person, to never flee, and to get justice for Uthman. This incredible moment became known as the Pledge of Ridwan.
Now here's the twist. It turned out Uthman was actually safe, but the pledge itself,
That was the real event. When the news of this unanimous, unbreakable oath reached the Quraysh, it sent a shockwave right through their leadership. They realized they weren't dealing with the divided group they could just intimidate. No, they were facing an unbreakable force of 1,400 people ready to die for their cause. The entire balance of power shifted in that one moment, and not a single sword had been drawn.
This unbelievable show of unity forced Quraysh right back to the negotiating table. The treaty they eventually signed, on the surface, had terms that seemed pretty unfair to the Muslims, but it accomplished something so much bigger than just getting into Mecca that year. It secured a 10-year truce. That period of peace, that was the clear victory. It allowed the message of Islam to be shared openly, without the constant threat of war. And get this, more people embraced the faith in the next 2 years than in all of the 19 years before it combined.
And that kind of leaves us with this final thought, doesn't it? The story of Hudaybiyyah really challenges how we define success. It suggests that sometimes the greatest strength isn't about winning a battle. It's about having the wisdom and the patience to secure a peace that paves the way for a much, much greater victory down the road.